friends, so welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I would finally share with you my birth story. I actually filmed this already once and my husband was out mowing at the time I was filming it and I didn't realize how loud the lawnmower was, so like it was basically ruined. So I had planned on doing like kind of a birth vlog. Of course this was before, I can't talk today, the whole COVID stuff came through, and so due to all the restrictions and stuff, I only was allowed one person, and having him try to film stuff, or even me just trying to film stuff while I was in labor, just wasn't working. So I figured I would bring you guys along by just telling you about it. So basically Saturday after, so we'll rewind. So Thursday, I had a doctor's appointment. It was my 37, I was like 37 weeks, 2 days or something, maybe one day, I don't know. I was 37 weeks. It was my 37-week appointment, and my doctor checked me and everything, and I was 2 centimeters dilated and about 50% effaced. So that's pretty decent. At least my body was making some progress. I actually got checked at like 32 weeks because I was having some contractions, and I was like a fingertip. So I had obviously progressed. And so she did do a membrane sweep because she does that and checked me and everything looked good. And so, and because a lot of times those will put me in labor, but this time she's like, oh no, I'll probably see you next Thursday, because my appointments were every Thursday. And so I was like, yeah, I figured, you know, the baby wouldn't come before then, because most of the time, the last 2 times I've had my babies at like 38 weeks and some change basically. So didn't think much of it. Was a little crampy after the membrane sweep, but then I went home and everything just kind of, like, I would have contractions off and on, and then like every time I would start to time them, they would of course go away. So it was just kind of frustrating. So I was like, okay, well, I either wanted like not to be bothered by annoying contractions, or I wanted it to turn into something so that like I could go have my baby. So, because, you know, we were getting right into the thick of like the pandemic stuff, and I was really anxious about delivering and how that was all going to go. But the doctor, like, they did a really good job of like keeping everything separate. So while I was in there, I didn't really feel worried about it. So anyway, so now we're fast forward to Saturday, and we started working on some home projects. So one of the first projects we're working on is in our laundry room. There, we have like a rough-in for a laundry sink. And my husband got some cabinets from his job because he does cabinets. So when they were like tearing out old cabinets, they didn't want them anymore, and they were still in decent shape. So we're like, hey, can we take these? Like, yeah, sure. They're just garbage anyway. And so basically I was helping him, not doing a whole lot. Like, I wasn't like lifting heavy or anything, but just like helping him with measuring, and maybe like the occasional like help him set the cabinets in where they go on the wall. And so so basically it was probably about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, run to the bathroom, and I noticed like a bunch of extra discharge. It's kind of tinged pink and brown, which basically is considered bloody show, even though it's not really that bloody. But yeah, so FYI, there's lots of TMI in there. So if you don't like TMI, just see you next time. And I was like, oh, is that my mucus plug? And normally I don't normally lose that until I'm like in labor. So it was kind of like, uh-oh. And so the whole time I'm like, oh great, like, am I going into labor? Like, I hadn't really had any contractions that day. I'd been kind of crampy, but like, you know, when you're got a giant, you know, baby, everything just kind of hurts. So so all of a sudden I started noticing like, okay, I am crampy and they're starting to feel a bit more consistent. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go time these and they're gonna go away. Because I'm like, I was 37 weeks, I think 3 days. So I'm like, it's too early. And the membrane sweep didn't work because normally it would work within like 24 hours. So finally, after a few hours, or maybe about an hour to 2, I was like, you need to call your sister because these are getting consistent and they're starting to get a little bit stronger. So we call his sister, and she's about 45 minutes out. So we're like, okay, well, we kind of need you to come, because we were really stressing out like who's going to watch him. And so luckily enough, it was Saturday, and his sister, she's still considered an essential employee, so she was able to work. But, you know, obviously, and I felt terrible trying to like ask her to take time off. So this is how you know I'm like a mom of multiples. And so I'm pretty sure I'm in labor by now. So I've been having contractions. This was probably like 4:35-ish. I make dinner for the kids. I make sure that they eat it. I get them in the bathtub, and yeah, like all while timing contractions, because, you know, I am multitasker extraordinaire. And so basically sister comes. I think she came a little bit later than 45 minutes. It was like, because I think we called her about 4:35 and she came like closer to 7. So it worked out well though, because kids were in their jammies and normally like they watch a show and go to bed. So she didn't really have to do like a whole lot of watching, which was nice. So, and the dogs were fed and everything too. So we hop in, so we take my husband's giant lifted truck because we left the minivan with my sister-in-law just in case of emergencies. I mean, they weren't planning on going anywhere, but if she needed to like go somewhere, kid got hurt, I don't know, you know, with all the car seats in it, of course. So then we're chugging along and I'm like, now my contraction's starting to slow down. I'm like, oh no, like it was a whole false alarm because, you know, they're starting to slow down, they're getting further apart, they're starting to be less painful. And my husband's like, well, worst case scenario, we get a little, you know, date night out of it by going to the hospital and then maybe we'll grab ice cream on the way home or whatever. So we get into the hospital, I think it's like 8:30, maybe closer to 9 by now. And we're, you know, checking in. And so when you walk in, they take your temperature, they give you a mask. And so I'm like signing in and stuff. And then we go into the little triage room, which is like the smaller rooms before because if you're not in labor, you get triaged and then you get sent home, or you go from triage to your labor and delivery room. So we get in there and I'm like, you know, I'm telling her like they were this much apart. They were doing really good, like 2-3 minutes apart. Pretty consistent, and then like as soon as we got here they started slowing down, so it's almost like the rumble of the truck like just calmed them down, which was annoying. So I finally get so she checks me and I'm 4 centimeters and about 70%, so I was progressing, so they were at least doing something. But she's like, you can kind of sit at 4 centimeters, and because I was only 37 weeks, even though I was technically you're technically full term, but now they're like, they call it early term, so like they won't, a lot of times if you're 4 centimeters and you're at a certain point in your pregnancy, they'll keep you. But because I was still kind of early, even though I wasn't early, it was kind of annoying actually. They were like, well, we'll talk to the doctor. And they did a test to see if my water broke, because I'm like, you know, like it doesn't, like I didn't have like a big gush, but like it just felt different down there. Almost like a trickle, if that makes sense. And so she did the test and came back positive. So my water must have broke like between leaving the house and coming there, because yeah, that's the only thing I can think happened. But it wasn't like a big trickle. So I bought myself a stay by having my water broke, which is kind of nice. So we get situated into our birthing room. I sit on the birth ball for a while. Contractions still aren't really picking up, and now we're getting like, it's starting to get late and I'm getting tired, and well, sorry, they did start to pick up by then. So I'm like, okay, I want my epidural. So I got my epidural at like 11:30ish, and because I'm like, I need to sleep. And I knew they were going to start Pitocin soon because things had not really progressed. And so I think probably about 2 a.m. they started Pitocin. And with the epidural, like I pretty much slept all night, like, you know, in and out of sleep, because they're coming in and they're like shifting you to one side, shifting you to the other side to kind of help you dilate. And so like, I think I was about 2 a.m. I was about 5 centimeters. And then 5 a.m. I was 8 centimeters. And then I think it was like 7:30 or whatever, I was finally complete. And so they were kind of getting ready to, but like I wasn't feeling like the urge to push just yet. So then it was roughly like, yeah, like between 7 and 8, I'm starting to feel like, okay, it's time to start having this baby. And my husband's there, and we do a couple practice pushes just to kind of see where I'm at, because they wanted to make sure, like, because sometimes like if the baby's not really coming down yet, they let you do something called labor down, which basically means that you just sit there complete and the baby kind of works its way down on its own. That really has helped me the last 2 times, because then I don't have any tearing, and pushing goes like a lot quicker. Like you're not like pushing for hours, or at least it's been my experience. So I do a couple practice pushes, and then like on the last push, they're like, okay, we're gonna do one more push and then we'll wait and see what happens. And I do this one more push, and all of a sudden there's this bang crash, and I look over and my husband's like passed out. Like, this is our 4th kid. He's seen it all, and he's been present for each one, and he literally passes out. So here I am trying not to push. They have like 5 nurses come rushing in with like smelling salts to try to wake him up, because, you know, it's like, what just happened? And because he hit his head, they were all worried about him, so they wanted him to go to the ER. And so it was one of those things that's like, so the doctor was like, okay, we're gonna have a baby and then we're gonna send you to the ER. So then the doctor went and called the ER on-call person to let them know that he was coming, but like the situation, because they were like really concerned, like they like wanted him to go like directly to the ER. And it was like, I'm going to have this baby within like 5 minutes. Can he wait 5 minutes to see his child come into the world? So I think it was like 3 pushes, and she was out. They put her on my chest, and along all this, since my mom couldn't be there, she was actually on the little video chat, and whenever he passed out, he knocked it over. So we got that all set up. So she got to be there virtually to see the baby being born. And then they literally like throw him in a wheelchair and whisk him out of the room. So here I am, just had a baby. And my husband's like gone to the ER, and I'm freaking out because I'm like, is he okay? Like, what's going on? And so finally, like, probably 30-40 minutes later, they have him call me, and he's like, yeah, I'm fine. Basically, he hadn't really eaten much because, we had dinner, and then we hadn't eaten since dinner. And then he, sleeping in the hospital, he didn't sleep very much because it's hard to sleep when you're in the hospital. And then also he hadn't been drinking much. So they gave him a bunch of food, some snacks, and some drink, like apple juice or something. And to basically make sure he was okay, and he was fine. But yeah, so that was interesting. So it was kind of eventful, as in like my husband made it eventful. But yeah, she's perfectly healthy. She's doing really good, growing really well. Also, yeah, like, I'm trying to think. I mean, that's pretty much what happened. So overall, my experience of delivering a baby in a pandemic. In some ways, it's been kind of nice because we haven't had the pressure to have a bunch of visitors over, and so I don't feel the need to always be like on and entertain people. Even though like people say like you're supposed to relax, I feel like I just can't. But it's been really hard in the same sense because even though my husband did take a couple weeks off to help me, it was really hard with just the two of us. So in some ways, like emotionally, I'm really struggling because I've just been dealing with, kind of missing my family, not really being able to see anybody, and just kind of feeling like my support structure is not there. I'm hoping as we start to slowly get back to normal-ish, that things will get better for me. I'm trying really hard not to focus too much on what I'm missing out, because in some ways I do feel like I was robbed of my final pregnancy, especially the delivery. I mean, it's really hard when you have like your little baby memory book and you can't write visitors because you didn't have any visitors. And then my husband also had to leave right after she was born, pretty much. I mean, I guess he was there for a few hours because he had to go home and take care of the other kids, because this was Sunday when I had the baby. And so I was by myself, and that was really hard because normally my mom would stay with me one night and then my husband would stay with me one night, so that I wasn't alone. And I'm a very people person, so it's been really hard. But overall, I guess the biggest silver lining is she's here, she's healthy, we're doing good. I'm trying to get into a new normal routine, and and I'm just ready to kind of get back into the swing of things, get my body back, get my life kind of more organized. I mean, all the things. But anyway, I hope that was fun. I hope it wasn't too rambly. I get a little rambly sometimes. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.